He, he will start now.
Yeah, recording is started, Professor. It shows.
Recording started. Okay, okay. Okay, guys. Now, how do you go? Tell me. Should I start with the IR concept? Then
Yes.
we'll discuss what else you want to, whatever you have in mind. Okay. Now, most of you are aware of industrial relation situation, ER situation, labor law situation, and all. Okay. What is that you are aware of IR? ER? What is that you like to know? What do you mean by, first of all, IR? What do you mean by ER? ER, I mean employee relations. IR, I mean industrial relations. Why do they call it? It's one and the same word or different word? Or do you have any other third word also? And is it applicable only to the industries? Or it is also applicable to IT companies and other companies set up in most of the corporate cities? Come on, your points. Kotesh, you are there, I can see you. Anand, I can see you. Tell me, what do you mean by IR? What do you mean by ER? What is all about it?
Sir, frankly speaking, I don't have an idea.
You don't have any idea. Okay, who's got an idea? Some guys must be there and doing into some HR and IR, and all, right? In this group. Last group I had, even one person was doing from Tata Titans. Anybody in this group who is dealing with IR?
Industrial relations is probably dealing with employees, the labor unions and the trades. I'm sorry, employee unions. And so
Okay.
on.
It's part of HRM, right?
Yes.
IR is definitely part of HRM, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Industrial relation is dealing with the employees. Okay, what else? Anybody else would like to add something? In any case, I'll start giving you what I mean by ER and IR and all those things. Anybody like to add something? Anybody dealing with this concept? Navsat, Amit Kumar. How many of you are there? Very few of you are there, it looks like. Huh? Satyajit. Satyajit, what do you want to say, man?
So, industrial relationships deals with basically the employer and um, the labor's or worker unions, as rightly said, and uh, where the employer relationships it's purely basis the management versus the employees, I guess, largely.
Okay, great, great. That is the basic things. Anybody else would like to add something? Okay, I'll tell you. Let's start with the word employee relations. What is employee? Suppose there's a factory. Neil Mangla, there's a factory. There are 100 people are working there. There are a lot of employees, fitter, turner, skilled people. There's an engineer, there's a small HR department, there's a plant head, whatever you call CEO and all those things. So the employee will always have some sort of grievance or issues with his own immediate boss, that is his engineer or a foreman or whatever you call it. Or that employee may also have a grievance with the HR department. So that's an individual employee has got a small concern for himself or maybe on behalf of few of his group of employees. Maybe he's not got his basic whatever additional overtime payment not released in time, or his leave was not showing in the register, whatever available leave limit. So either he takes up with the employer, that is HR, or he talks to his immediate boss, that is his engineer or foreman or whatever. Here we call it a single employee by almost, or a few employee talking to either to his functional head or to the HR department, either functional related item or his personal related item. He's seeking the help or he wants them to resolve. So this we call employee relationship, meaning by employee to employee. By and large, a single employee to single employer, that could be a department head, or it could be a single employer, that could be HR head. So it's at a very single people or a few issues at a very micro level. At the starting of the level, this is called employee relationship. When it becomes industrial relationship, a group of employees, large number of employees, major issues. I said industrial relation emerges out of employee relations, group of employees, large number of employees, many issues. It is represented not only by the employee himself, it also gets represented by his number two is employee union. Excuse me. So the same employee issue gets represented by employee himself, and then employees union himself, sometimes the union outside the industry. So the employee grievance gets 3 dimensions. Employee himself is one union and the affiliated union outside. 3. The employer side, the employer, maybe it's only at the level of HR or at the level of top management, maybe the CEO, MD, whoever is concerned, or the employer also has got an employer association, rubber mill association, steel mill association. So everybody has got their own association, so they don't want to take a opinion on any labor issues, common issue without consulting. So employee relation, the same issue becomes little more complex. Many issues, many employee concern. That employee is represented by the local union, also represented by the affiliated union, if at all one, the left side. The right side, employer is represented by the HR, represented by the local management, also represented by the employer association, the business association. So 6 people get into that. So the simplicity of employee relationship gradually gathers masses to become a complex issue. Now when 336 comes into, definitely intermediating agencies come into play, which is government agency, could be a labor commissioner, enforcement officer. The other side, it becomes a labor court, high court, and all those things. So this 6 becomes 8. So simple employee relationship evolves into industry relationship, or issues to be resolved through IR method. Why the issues becoming complex? Because 336 party got into that, and 2 intermediate parties got in, which is government agency and labor court, high court, and such like that. And how do they start resolving? Initially, the single employee could have gone in a casual, informal way, chat with his boss, his foreman, or chat with his labor welfare officer or HR guy over a tea or in a canteen or while crossing inside the plant. It's a simple, casual issue, started talking, and again there's a reminder, sir, I told you didn't resolve that issue. Maybe once he remands, second remand. So it's getting into that level of reminder, one-to-one, trying to solve it out. Now with 6 people got into, 2 more emerging intermediate people are watching, government especially watching, and the labor court is waiting to receive any complaint to resolve. Then it is resolved through collective bargaining, bipartite and tripartite. What is collective bargaining? The union people, they think that if I have more union member, my negotiation becomes better through collective bargaining. Rather than a simple employee or group of employee meeting, I go through collective bargaining system. At times, it is also done through bipartite. Bipartite means only employee under 3 wings, employer under 2 wings. It is bipartite. When it becomes intervened, when the issues are getting complex, both parties are not able to getting nearer to the solution. They are getting into different direction. Egos are getting into them. Both of them are getting reacted. Then the government helps them to bring them into common text. That is called tripartite. So the simple employee issue of a simple leave sanctioning, simple salary reduction done, becomes a major issue of demanding more bonus, because more major issue of that conforming from temporary to permanent employees, appointing more employees, or a termination of guys not correct and wrongly done with victimization. All those things getting bigger and complex issues in the form of industrial dispute, and that industrial dispute has to be resolved through a relationship. That relationship comes through government agencies, either through your bipartite or tripartite, or if it is not done, then one goes to the court, either labor court to start with, then go to high court and Supreme Court. So this is the scenery of an employee relationship getting into IR, and then how the 6 people jump into the fray, how the mechanism works as such. Okay, is it clear? So this is the starting point of a IR and ER with 6 agencies getting into picture, and from simplicity it comes into complexity. Is it clear to you guys?
Yes, sir.
Clear? Can you repeat it what I said?
Uh,
The first point.
So with the employee, so it's the individual employee versus employee. If individual is having issues, he can reach out to the HR department to get it addressed. But when it comes to industrial, it has a wide variety of the employees. When a large number of employees, we have 6 bodies. As you mentioned, the employees' grievance or the union involvement. It's a collective collectiveness to bargain. It's a bargaining power. The more the people in the group, the more they have the ability to bargain to get their demands met. So, and when it is not met, two party, employee and the employers, it goes to the third party, which is the tripartite way.
Correct. Very well, sir. So this is a starting point. What is ER, IR, how the simplicity gets into complexity with 6 people getting into and 3 more agencies getting into. Now, first, then the third is that how important is that IR? Is it important? And what are the objectives? How seriously one has to take it? Why one has to take? Can we ignore IR part of it? Or do we need to take it seriously? And where do we need to take it seriously? Only in factories, or in the corporate offices here, in cities, or in IT companies, or marketing promoting companies, or HR solution companies, or auditing firms, where this becomes more applicable. Why there it has become applicable, where it is applicable. And if it is applicable, what are the objectives?
Primarily, it's again an industry where the involvement of labor is huge labor. To manage that the mass laborers, we should have a common minimum program in terms of the deliverables, the objective of the business, how to deliver it, and set of processes, rules, and so on and so forth. And at the same time, the workers' demands are to be seen. Their demands are to be met in a proper a channel, because they are at the bottom layer of the society. And unlike the executives who can voice it out, they cannot voice it out, and their voices are not heard unless until there is a group of people, collectiveness, and a leader will speak on behalf of them. So this is important both ways, to hear them, to address their problems, and find a solution.
Very well, sir. Very well, sir. So basically, okay, what about it's according to it's applicable by and large to the factories, industries.
Correct.
Right. Not
where the involvement of laborers are more.
Large number of laborers are there, and the manufacturing process is taking place. Very well. So it's what now there can they afford to take IR casually? No, they cannot take it. Yeah, you are saying something.
No, so it can't be taken casually. See, unlike there is a healthy relationship, and that relationship can be developed only through a communication. Now, individually can't go and communicate. They need a platform wherein people can exchange the requirements, the industry requirements, the employer requirement, as well as from the employee's requirement. So
Correct,
it cannot be avoided.
Very well, sir. So meeting the needs and requirements of the employee in a legal, transparent manner. I mean, needs could be arbitrary. We cannot meet that. The needs and requirements of the employee in a fair, legal, responsible manner, and thereby making them to be happy, trusting the company through proper communication, and thereby to enable them to commit and involve in production, reduce wastage, reduce losses, good quality, cost of production reduce. This is the objective of the IR, right? You are an employee. The purpose of the employee is to produce more, reduce loss, produce good quality, reduce the cost of operation. So on the other side, employee also has got a need. He has got his fair salary, bonus, leave benefits, all other benefits. But only thing is you have to make sure that whatever employee is asking, it's legal, proprietary, within the norms, as per the industry standard, as per social justice, as per the legislation provided. If you could meet that and then do that, then you achieve the industrial relationship. Why you have to achieve the industrial relationship? Unless you achieve the relationship, you will not be able to get this harmony, trust, and thereby you will not be able to achieve it. So IR plays a major role in industries, especially in factories and industries, large scale factories, maybe steel, rubber, even estates, tea estates, or sugar, alcohol, chemical, pharma, anywhere industries are there, where most of blue collar workers are involved, maybe unskilled, semi-skilled, highly skilled people are involved. Their IR plays a major role. So the management has to take care in trying to do this thing. Number one. Number two, still, if we understood this part, it's very much needed. Without that, we'll not be able to achieve that. And it can get into repercussions of lockdown, strikes, and production losses. But even then, the IR situation is getting disturbed. A lot of strikes is taking place. What could be the reasons? The third, first we understood IR, ER concept. Two, we understood the sixth complexity. Third, we understood, no, it's absolutely important, necessary to handle this IR part very well, without which the basic production itself will go for a task and the employee will not get involved. Employee will create a lot of problems. Now, this is very well understood by all of us, or anybody for that matter. Now, even with all those things, still the industrial risk is taking place. lot of production losses taking place, a lot of men days is lost heavily. What could be the reasons?
One is politically motivated.
Okay.
Almost.
Hmm.
That's what the unions and all everywhere. If you see mostly the unions demand and all, even today is in the banking sector, that they find it to be the legitimate if their family members to be extended the job, they cannot employ from outside. So these are all issues pertains to. So in one sense, it is a political and a motivated. Second, they are not very sure if they are benchmarking with the industry itself and putting forth their demands in a way which is not manageable by the employers, looking at the productions, looking at the cost and all. So there initiates the conflicting point, I guess.
Good, very good point. Very good. You said that thing. Though we will understand systematically 1, 2, 3, 4 in a framework manner. Anybody would like to add? He said political, without any logic, without any reason, right? That's what you're
Difference of so, Professor, difference of opinion between how or what the company wants to do versus what the labor union thinks. It could be it could be in terms of wages or the number of hours to be worked, or it could be anything in terms of policies. Without taking proper feedback from the trade union, if the company decides to implement some things, then there could be a conflict.
Okay. What first we said political, not with much logical and all. What you said, there is not clarity of what the perspectives of both parties. Yes. Or the communication not clear, transparency is not clear. Second point, right? That's what we are trying to conclude. Right. This is what you are trying to say, right? Am I rephrasing it correctly? I mean, your intention may be correct, but your perspective have not been understood, or you have not understood their perspective. So that means there is no clear-cut communication between both parties. So both of us pursuing right and wrong things, then it gets into misunderstanding. That could be another reason for labor unrest. And okay, second, third.
Third could be, sir, the replacement or the threat of replacement of the labor or the workers or the labor unions. There seems to be a threat if machines is being introduced. For example, way back in the 90s, when the computer were on the verge of introducing, the unions felt that there could be a loss of job. So that's a threat of replacement. Could be another where their interests are not being protected or not been rightly, Sanjeev said, it's not communicated properly and they were not taken into confidence.
Good, very well said. What you said, the third point, from yourself, it's psychological insecurity, fear created in workers. Oh, they are going to retrench. They got new machine. They'll throw a lot kind of people. It may or may not happen. Psychologically, the risk of losing a job, risk of getting sacked, getting created by the vested people doing that kind of communication that they are going to throw. And the last majority of people psychologically getting to that. And from our management side, we could not communicate properly to remove that psychological risk. So basically the third point, first we talked about one, second we talked about your communication. Third, again, we're talking about psychological related issues of, unknown kind of danger, risk. Oh, these guys are going to throw, I'm going to lose my job, I'm going to lose my position, I'm going to quit my this thing, or they'll transfer me to some other place. They are going to put a lot of contract labor in place of my permanent job. All those kind of psychological issues created, perceived, not communicated, not handled effectively. That could be third. What else?
Fourth could be related to procedures and policies. Again, it is communication related to more or less related to communications. Not accepting to the change which is required by the industry, but they are not been accepted, not ready to accept the change.
Okay, whatever the process or anything brought in, workers have a resistance to understand that change, right? So we can put it lot many other words. Whatever change is brought is not well communicated. You are not handling that resistance to change properly. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
Can we put it fourth point? Good point you people are raising. So whatever you want to do, new machine introduction or new process improvement or quality improvement or manpower rationalization. I'm not saying the word manpower control, manpower rationalization. There's going to be some sort of resistance, change resistance. Now, if you don't handle that resistance to change, in an amicable manner, that can also blame into a big dispute. Fifth point. Yes, very well said. What else?
Industrial
Third-
automation.
Sorry, industrial
Automation.
automation will lead into this kind of change management, right? When
Yes.
you do automation, either it get into change management or it get into psychological, that risk one. So far we highlighted 4 points, right? Psychological, economical, and communication, this kind of issue. So when you go for an automation, if it is properly explained through change management, yes, automation is coming, it is going to make your job easier, you will get trained, your capability will go better, your employability will be better. If you explain it that way, then it becomes better. The resistance to change come back. Or if it is left and somebody else's union or some other people going and telling, oh, they are automatic to reduce people, they'll sack people, they will retrench it. It goes the other way around. So it doesn't stop there. Then it puts a seed in their mind saying that, okay, these guys are trying to, then they'll come up with 10 more issues. Imaginary kind of demands they'll come up. Where they cannot come simply with this kind of thing. If you have a fever, you can go with a fever. If you don't have a fever, you are just somebody has created a terror in you, you are likely to have a fever, then you come with all sorts of feverish issues. So that could be another reason. What else?
Could be on a personal, this thing, compensation side, perks and privileges, which
Yeah.
needs to be,
6 point is heavily on economic reasons.
yes.
See, 30 to 40% of your industrial unrest is economic reasons. Could be what is that? Salary revision, bonus revision, overtime less paid, cycle allowance not paid, other industries paying some special elements which you are not paying, the same sector. So it is all, I can put it all in one cause, economic reasons. Lot many varieties of things. You people highlighted many more, though I written few. One is economic reasons. Your wage revision once in 3 years it takes place, or whenever government gives a direction you don't implement in time, or sometimes people think that, oh, other industries paying more in the same sector, same geography, you are not paying this equal, so wage comes. Bonus always a dispute. There is a bonus act which says 8.33 to 20%. So you end up paying, that you paid last year 15. Every year there is an expectation of more bonus, whereas your company is not done well. You want to reduce bonus, they want to increase more. So that could be a reason. OT not paid. You already worked out OT, but you're not paid in time. All other benefits like your shoes and your caps or whatever small thing. And then the last point I've written, wrong precedence. What is that wrong precedence? Economically, suppose the bonus act says one is eligible for up to 20%. Minimum is 8.33. The maximum is 20. By mistake, under pressure, you paid 22% 2 years back. Now you already create a wrong precedence. Now the next coming year, they are not going to stop that level. They want to keep on increasing from 22 to 23, 24, that kind of percentage. So if it goes that time, if you want to stop, the law says, though you are supposed to pay only 20%, you already created a wrong precedence. Now that becomes a major reason where law cannot come to help you directly, because you only set a wrong precedence. Now the court says, the law says you already created a law person, whatever benefit given to you by rightly, wrongly by you. So the court and law will not interfere to reduce it. So that becomes a major economic causes by the mistakes done by the manager. So all one classes we put economic causes, whatever you said the first one, economic causes. The second could be organizational cause. Organization means your communication. You knowingly do some unfair labor practice. If it says 8-hour shift, why are you putting 8.5-hour shift? If it says it cannot be more than 48 hours, if it says 5 days a week, if it says 6 days a week, if it says 10 days national holidays and all those things. So stick to that kind of labor practices. And the lack of transparency. Whatever you want to do, you do it with transparently. You can always ask for improvement in production. You can always give them the training, but do it with transparency. And the next point is ineffective handling of union employee. What do you mean by ineffective handling of employer union? Tell me this. Okay, we'll come to that last. Psychological causes, which we already discussed psychologically. People say that, oh, they are going to retrench, they are going for automation, I will lose my job, and they are going to transfer me, they are going to merge it, they are going to sell the company. All those kind of reasons could be one reason for creating this thing. Political cause. Political is without all this, whatever we discuss could be a logical, reasonable, some, some sort of fear, but political is something, it's a sort of Marxist or a political bank one. There are, each industry has got a union. That union also has got their mother union, maybe trade union in Calcutta, trade union, Kisan, whatever, in Communist Union, UP Union, Punjab Union, all this different kind of unions are there. So when they get into that kind of thing, that becomes a political issue. They not only see from employees more roles, disputes and grievances, they'll see from vote bank point of view. So then it becomes really difficult. That's an external kind of issue. Internal issues can be solved. When it becomes external, it becomes political. Then the fourth issue is that management leadership. What all we discussed in the 5-6 we point raised it. Can you people repeat it again? Economic cost we discussed, right? We talked about communication, right? We talked about psychological. We talked about resistance to change. Now we are talking about political costs. What else we discussed a few minutes back? Guys, can you repeat? This is all or something else we discussed? By and large, the factors which could be responsible for industrial reason, that could be the diagnostic, that could be the seed for industrial unrest, by and large. Anything else we discussed? Okay. Now, the other major point which I like to emphasize more here is management leadership of balancing firm and relaxing. Like I told you, here, Bonus Act clearly says 8.33 to 20. You be absolutely strong. Don't give more than 20. There could always be a dispute between 14% to 16%. You say there is a 14% because my company has become sick during the pandemic period. I cannot pay even 14%. I'll go back to 8.33%. But if they say there could be a dispute, 8.32 to 14 or 14 to come back to 8.33 or 14 to asking for 16 could be a dispute. It's a genuine issue. It can be done. But when they ask for 21%, when you are accepting it, most of the industry did it in my own experience, then the leadership is not being firm. Once you are not firm, the precedence takes over. Once takes over, they'll keep on asking more and more. So you already cut your hand in handling IR in an ineffective way of handling it. That's what I said. How are you handling effectively union? Or you are handling ineffectively one? Effectively, I don't mean that being ruthless, doing rough. Be fair, be transparent. Don't allow them to take you for a ride. Don't make mistakes by not doing the right thing at the right time. So 1, 2 is that relaxing. Wherever you are likely to relax. For example, there could be 14 to 16 point bonus claiming. Or there has been an announcement from the government that minimum salary dearness allowance has been increased. The notification has to come, but some of the circular has come. Be amenable, receipt, be communicate to them. Okay, it has come, I have come. I'll give a letter in writing to them. As and when the notification so far has come, we come to know there has been increase in the dearness allowance point. This much in money has to be given, but still we have not yet received. The moment we receive, we'll give it. So your leadership has to be very much balanced, where to be firm, where to be relaxing. Now, this is the point. Now, most of the places, when I come back to the organizational cost only, not many things. But where the dispute starts? The dispute starts from the management side. You are not clear where to comply, how to comply. For example, most of the companies, all of your companies are using contract labor, right? Not the IT companies, the manufacturing company. The contract labor is being used heavily, or the bonus is being distributed, or there could be other issues. Now, you are supposed to be aware of what the law says, and you are supposed to implement what the law says. But the management knowingly, unknowingly doesn't implement the law properly. The union is very much aware of the law, whether it's Payment of Wages Act, or it's a Bonus Act, or a Factory Act, or Industrial Dispute Act. Suppose you want to dismiss an employee. The labor law doesn't say you cannot dismiss an employee, but the labor law under the Industrial Dispute Act, it says if you want to terminate an employee, do it under social justice, under natural justice. What does it mean by give a charge sheet to that guy? Like a court, if you are somebody is found murder or somebody, the court doesn't immediately hang that guy. The charge sheet is issued, argument takes place, witnesses are examined, cross-examination takes place, then the judgment is given, the judgment is appealed, various appeals takes place. Finally, the punishment is given based on, okay, we gone through the justice of giving that opportunity to that guy, whether have you done the mistake? What are the witnesses? You have both sides. Then you do it. So what happens is, according to me, most of the IR issues that management, I blame a lot to the management. We don't comply with the act as per the act. The boss is not the employee. The boss is not we as an employer. The boss is the law, whatever law. So understand the law, whether it's contract labor, whether it's a bonus act, whether it is a ESI act, whatever act, then try to implement the law. Sometimes knowingly, unknowingly, you don't do, for example, contract labor employee. So most of the industry, they tend to take contract labor and they don't pay the minimum salary employable to the contract labor. They think that it's, I'm not the employer is the contractor. They deal with a contractor that I'll pay you 15,000 rupees per employee or something like that. They don't make a contractor agreement saying that I will pay the minimum salary of PF, PSA, everything to your employee, contract employee, posted under you, though I am the principal employer, I'll pay you service charges to you. Instead of doing that, I employed XY as a contractor, and you say supply 100 employee to me. For each employee, I'll pay you 15,000 rupees. Now that guy may not be complying with the minimum salary. As per the act, you are, number one, if you take contract act, as per the act, what it says, first of all, you are not allowed to employ contract labor in a manufacturing core job. Suppose I'm running a factory where I have a turbine, where I have a boiler, where I have mill. I cannot have any contract labor inside everywhere. Yes, I can have contract labor as a security guard, which is not manufacturing, which is not core job, which is a peripheral job. Or once in while coming to clean the plant or whitewashing the plant, which is not a manufacturing core job. So I should be very clear where contract labor can be engaged, number one. Number two, okay, when I'm allowed to engage, whether the contractor has taken the license to engage that contract employee. If he has not taken the license and is simply giving an invoice, whatever employee you are given seems to be your own permanent employee. Tomorrow, these guys can go to claim, though I have been paid through contractor, but I'm in a permanent employee, so I must be made permanent employee. So second, third, that you sign an agreement with the guy saying that 15,000 rupees I'll pay. You have not made an agreement saying that you have to ensure paying that minimum salary of 12,000 PF, PSA and all those things. I'm paying you that money. Plus I'm paying you service charges. You have not done it, then that guy he's not complying with that. Suppose labor inspector, you employed 50 employees through the contractor. He has been found not paying the PF to that employee, or he has been found not paying the minimum salary, or he is not paying bonus to that employee. Who is accountable for this thing? Who can be penalized?
As
I want you guys.
principal employer.
Yeah, as a principal employee. Just you are aware of it, you are saying. Otherwise, most of the people they say that my job is I appointed a contractor. He's employer. I'm not the employer. So his duty is to employ them. No. So like this, there are many ways. One, if you are aware of the Contract Employee Act, if you are aware of, like you said correctly, the principal employer responsible. So those guys are waiting for you. The employee will go through the contractor. The employee will happily take less than minimum salary. He'll wait for a year. The union will wait for a year. Then he will make you to make a mistake. Then they will create a dispute. Okay, once the dispute is created, then you are already in a mess. You committed a mistake. At least that time, effectively handling, you correct that situation, pay the minimum salary, set right, and then do it. No, that time also you will try to argue in a different manner. No, it's not my employee. It's a contractor. So one, you made a mistake. Two, again, you was making a mistake. That is what I mean, ineffective handling of employee. So one, I given an example like contract labor. Taking, for example, termination. You terminate. Who stops you not to terminate employee? But have you gone through the process? Then you can terminate. Three, suppose there is an act says that some ESI act to be implemented in your area. You will say, no, I will not implement it. Who are you not to implement it? Our union employee says that the employee, we are not getting benefit. The employee union sometimes goody with you. They will come and tell you, sir, why are you unnecessarily wasting your money and my money? You don't implement ESI act because we are in a rural area. There is no ESI hospital. They deduct 7.5% of my money and your money of 2.75%. At the 3% it goes waste, sir. We will decide we will not implement. Now, if you don't implement it, it becomes a dispute could be not only between the employer and the union. The dispute between the employer and the labor law implementation. So what does it mean? One reason is that you should be absolutely aware of the labor laws. You should be aware of the implications. You should be aware of the do's and do nots of the labor laws. You should comply with the law properly. You make your prudency. You show your proactiveness that I am labor law complying industry. If you do that, 80% of the industrial rest can be prevented. I can tell you out of my own experience. Because if you don't do it, if you've done it already, why the Titan is not having, or Tata is not having? Okay, because you are complying with it. The 5 steps I said told you. I am aware of the law. I understand the implication. I'm implementing it diligently, proactively, deliberately, and I'm also communicating it is done. So 70% of the factors which could trigger into a reason for industrial IR issue could be talked about. So that is what I was trying to say. Ineffective handling. I given you 2 examples. Termination, the way you handle it, or sometimes the union trying to be very nice to you and not allowing you to implement an act which you should have implemented it, or you are not understanding your own responsibility as a principal employer, or you are not paying the compensation, or you are not paying the statutory benefits, whether PF or USA or everything. So in other words, not understanding, not complying the law, not implementing the law. You are not doing due diligence of this part. If your due diligence of conceiving, complying IR, industrial law completely, you to a large extent, you could avoid IR, number 1. So that is what I mean, effective handling of law, number 1. Number 2, when I said effective handling of union, when I said union, people put undue process. I want 21%. Or you are paying me 50 rupees cycle allowance, I want 100 rupees cycle allowance. Though the wage board says only 50 rupees. Why somebody else you are, I happen to know in one of the state in Punjab, there are 30 cooperative sugar mill unions. The wage board is common for all the sugar mill. So 50 rupees is cycle allowance to be given. One guy in one of the cooperative mill, one of the government officer was happened to be the in charge of the plant. He's not a seasoned, matured industry guy. The union put pressure, he thought 50 to 100 he made it. So seeing that guy, all other factories come. Our other industry, same industry guy has done 50 to 100. Now you also make it. Now I want you to answer from this guy. There's a wage board applicable to all the sugar industries in Punjab. There are 12 cooperative sugar industries. As per the wage board, 50 rupees cycle allowance to be paid each employee. Okay, one of the cooperative sugar mill, the CO, has under the influence of the local people, he increased to 100 rupees, 50 to 100 rupees, which is over and above the wage board. Now, the remaining 9 sugar mill union people, they are coming to you, sir, our partner there increased it, you should increase it. How will you handle it? Come on, guys, now you have to tell me. This, you are a HR guy, you are at CO, this problem is thrown to you. How will you handle this one? You got my question clear, right? Question is clear or not?
Sir, will you repeat the question again?
Yeah, for example, there's a wage board applicable to 10 sugar mill. Okay, in that wage board, apart from salary, there is one component called cycle allowance of 50 rupees monthly to be paid. Okay, so we are not supposed to pay more than 50 rupees because legally you are paying that as per the wage board. Now, one of your sugar mill guy, under the threat or influence of the union, local union, his union, increased to 100 rupees, which is not legally required, but he has done it. Now, the remaining 9 sugar industry union people, they're individually approaching their management. That guy is increased from 50 to 100. You should also increase to 100. How will you handle the situation? Is the question clear to you now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. The question is clear.
And now, how will you handle it? Because we are talking here effective handling of union, effective handling of labor law. That could be the reason for avoiding the IR risk dispute. Now, how will you handle the situation? Effective handling of union. This problem comes to you. How will you handle it? Will you give him 100 rupees?
No, Professor.
Giving away
First of
100 rupees is
Yeah.
we are setting up a precedent, like tomorrow they can come back and charge more. So giving away is not the solution.
We will call the union leader first
Yeah.
to the office and we will speak to him and we will make him to understand the situation of the company, like where the company stands right now and what is the condition of the company and other things.
Yeah.
And after explaining everything that is that the company is company's condition and everything, then we will tell him. So we will try to increase the amount from 50 to 100 in further in upcoming days. For now, you people please continue to work with the same wage that we are giving up. Once if the sales and the business increases in the company, so consecutively even we will increase the wages to 100 or more than that, whatever the other sugar industry providing to the employees. Like they're providing 100, we will give assurance to him, like we will increase in further days. So
Okay.
that's the only thing that we can make it.
So this is your answer. Good answer. I'll come back to you. Anybody would like to add to his answer?
Yeah. So I would like to understand from the company who raised the amount from 50 to 100 as to why they did it. Was it under threat? And if
Under threat, influencers, a good relation. Union
Yeah.
people sometimes they are very nice to, but when they get something nice
Correct.
to them, they go whether nice, sir, you are a great CEO, you are a great guy, this and that, please give. Or under threat or any fear, he has done it.
Yeah. So if it was under a presumption that the trade union did work extra hours and help us, help that company grow their profitability or revenues over a period of time, and if that is what has translated in the money being rewarded to them as a one-time or as an extension, that is something that we need to understand and explain to our trade unions. If it was under threat, then we need to work with the other trade unions or the other CEOs of other companies, ensure that we form a strong bond, and then go back to our trade unions and tell that we cannot emulate something that is not sustainable over a period of time, because it's not something that we can do over a consistent period, and that we will not be in a position to pay that additional 50.
Great. I got two perspectives. Anybody else?
Yeah, sure. Having been in the industry, probably I will go back and check with other competitors what they are thinking about A.
Okay.
Out of 10, 1 has increased. So is there any repercussions in the market that we need to understand and assess? A. B, since we are not at a fault or a receiving end, why? Because as a company, we have implemented the labor laws, strict whatever are required as per the labor department. And third, we should be getting on a discussion with the labor unions to make them understand that anybody can increase to their whims and fancies, but we cannot. Why? Because this is predominantly not sustainable in the long run. Second, what can be done, we can think of later on by giving a one-time bonuses or kind of, if the company does good, but from a regular increase from 50 to whatever is not possible. We should retreat and restrict ourselves.
Very, very good. Third point. Fourth.
Sir, one of the perspective is, along with the three perspective already my teammates mentioned. The IR of one particular company has to align with the rest of the multiple, in this example, sugar industries, to hold it as per the law. There is a one. And as well, the one employer who has already increased also has to be informed or has a formal meeting, and as well as with the organization saying that, or control board saying that it is not per the law.
Correct. Good point. Good. All of you explained very well. I'll tell you. I'll give you summarize in a 1, 2, 3, 4 kind of points. Here it's management and legal. Everything has to be seen. Okay. What else? Anybody like to add? Okay. Take from me. Here, your eyes are closed. Okay. When you want to have an IR, effective IR, in effective IR, we are doing two things: effective handling of union, effective implementation of labor law. Okay, two wings we are talking very professionally now. When you take about effective handling, I want to take about few examples. One example I have taken here. When I have effective handling, I already told you the theory and the framework. Don't yield to them more than the legal norms. When the Bonus Act says 20%, don't give 21. The moment you get 21, maybe only 1%. The moment you made one-time mistake, the bonus act helping you, not to give more than 20% goes away from you. Wrong precedence, I written you. So here, when the wage board says clearly, cycle allowance is 50, that guy is not supposed to touch that one. 50 to 100. You are touching it means you are opening the Pandora box. You are setting not only that 50 to 100. Tomorrow, they can touch all other components of your wage board. Cycle allowance, cooking allowance, dearness allowance, whichever allowance. Once you allow them one part of it, the court will also get into perplexity. Why the hell you people touched it? When there's a sanctum of a wage board signed at the tripartite level or a bipartite level, say, yeah, you will get X allowance, Y allowance, S salary and all those things. Why did you people touch it? So legally, effective handling of union, or meaning by through this example, you are not supposed to do that. If you do it, there's nothing question of I'm doing well or bad, I'll do that. That's all management part of it. Legal part of it, union, like I written wrongly, balancing firm. Here I have to take a firm one. I will not give you. I cannot give you. Because if I give it, not only the 50, I'm cutting my hand by relaxing the whole wage board itself. Have I answered it clearly? Are you people agreeing to that or not agreeing?
Yes, sir.
From we are talking more in the IR concept of from how I have to prevent industrial dispute by using my own safeguard given to me through law. What the law has given me, that don't pay more than 20%. What the law says, don't pay more than the wage board. If I myself break the support given to me, they give me security guard or a gunman, I throw the security guard. I don't want a gunman. I'll go alone in the market. So then these guys will attack, right? So that is one reason, effective handling up. So similarly, I told you, okay, I'll give you another same bonus example. Take one steel industry. The employees are been getting 20% bonus and they are going on strike. They want 22%. Well, how will you handle it?
So what's the question, sir?
The question is, one factory, say one chemical industry, doing very well. They got a lot of money through export. And you have been consistently paying 17, 18. Last year you paid 20. Bonus Act says 20%. This year they went on strike that you guys made a lot of profit. You made a lot of export. Maybe you produced all this, injections and all those kind. You made money. So we want more than 20% bonus. How will you handle it? They are on strike.
Again, as the law suggests, so
yeah, tell me.
Yes, the law suggests so. Remain between 8 to 20%. Court cannot take any actions. Yeah, from an employer perspective, on the counter view, what we can say during the losses also, we have paid you the minimum 8%, right?
Correct.
So, so are you willing to take less if company is not? So of course no. So why do you question us if the company is doing good or bad, whatever? So we are giving you this. All the parameters are set. We are working in the framework of the law. If you are not happy, go on strike. We have also right to go to court and can replace you.
Correct.
That's it.
This is what I mean to say, balancing. Management leadership of balancing where we have to firm. Now the same question I'll twist it. Okay, you yielded 21%, 22%. Okay, we made some money. The workers will create some other problem. A lot of order spending. We have to expert. You yielded to 22%. Okay, you've done it. Agreement is over. Bonus dispersed. Labor Commissioner also been informed it. Next year, your performance is not that great. Okay, next year they want 23%, 24%. Okay, as per the Bonus Act, as per the calculation, next year there's a procedure for calculating to 18.33 to 20%. As per the calculation, they are not likely to get more than 17%. But they say you already paid me last year 22. Now I want 24%. Now how will you handle this issue?
Now again, sir, we have broken the framework itself.
Yeah.
So we have kept informed labor department. So we have already invited problem for ourselves as a company organizations. Now again, two things. The last year, when company breached the 20% this thing, has there been any agreement kind of a thing? If not, if they have made it open like this, then again they can go to court anyway. They can go to court. But then
They will go to court. Yeah.
both can go to court. Why? Because the labor unions have a point last time when we have received it by gun this time. So our demands are justified. That's what how was it done last year? How it was been guarded against the company's interest? Whether there have been any agreement? If it is made, then they can farm on their this thing. Otherwise, it's a dicey situation for them.
Okay.
It will be in a log jam.
Okay, anybody would like to add to his perspective? He explained very well. And please keep in mind, law is 2 + 2 = 4. Okay, law will interpret what law says, what law is written in the book. Okay, management could be, that if I'll pay, I don't pay, you are doing well, or next year when I do very good and all. Law is, keep in mind, 2 + 2 = 4, like accountancy. Now, in this case, what he has to say, he has said it. Anybody like to add some other perspective? When I said law, let's talk strictly from law point of view. Not my opinion, your opinion, or management opinion, or managerial approach to this problem. Legal approach to this problem. Anybody would like to add? Okay. Now I'll tell you. In this case, when you are not paid 20% bonus, more than 20, when they wanted 21%, the court, he can go to court. The court can do nothing with you. The court has to only to support you. The court can take their strike as illegal, and then you can lock out and throw them, do whatever you want. The court will stand with you. Now, you already paid 21%. Like I told you, they given me security guard in going through this Nexel area, gunman, which I thrown out Nexel. I don't want the gunman, I'll go alone. So now you said, I've already created a precedence, I'll pay you 21 more under the act also, it is between you and me. The bonus act says that anything 20% is maximum. But however, by wrong precedence, anything more you paid, then that will continue to in future, they have the right to ask you the more. So now if you go to the court will say, now you have that absolute right up, they are claiming more than 20% is ruled out. Now it will become a dispute. It's payable or not payable. So by just doing one wrong precedence, not handling it effectively that time in a firm manner where it has to be firmed up, you relax your own control. Got my point? You relaxed it because now in the previous example, you are 100%. Let him go to court. Court cannot, even Supreme Court cannot say anything to you. Now, if you go to the court, court will listen to them. You may end up winning it in subsequent appeals by giving your economic reason and all other kind of reason. But the court will not suo moto at the first point itself dismiss his point. Getting it? That's what I mean to say. Wrong precedence. Okay, the third one is that, like I told you, the minimum, suppose you have a factory, you got a contractor. The contractor has employed some 50 people, and you paid you paid the contractor all the minimum salary, calculated everything, lump sum paid to that guy. That guy has not paid the money to the minimum wages. The inspector comes and rates that guy, and he comes to you. So the minimum salary is not paid to the contract employee. How will you handle this issue? Who is accountable? How you can prevent it? Who is responsible to handle it? How will you handle it?
It is again the responsibility always lies with the principal employer
we already discussed.
The contractor is there.
Yeah.
So principal employer should ensure before releasing the payment, subsequent month payment, whatever have you paid the last month, get all the wage registers, the PF acknowledgement slips, the ESIs and whatever deductibles to be met, cross-check, verified, audit, and then release the next month's salary in advance. So the cycle should be say 15 to 15.
Very well said.
The checking can happen between 15 to 30th, and then they can take it forward for release.
Very well said. What does it mean? What you said? Understanding the Contract Act, accepting that principal employer is responsible for minimum wages, implementing and supervising he does it, then you are handling it, right? This is what you said, right? Whatever facts you explain, what is the meaning of it? This is the meaning of it, right?
Correct.
This is the meaning of it. You explain fact, this is the meaning of it. But by not doing it, what are the implications? One, that guy can go to court for asking the difference in salary, which you have to pay as a principal employee. Whether you're able to recover it from contractor or not, that's your headache. You have to pay. But the worst point,
the brand image, the reputation goes in the market. That's
right.
That permanent dent.
3, that he can claim permanency of job. He will say, I was not a contract employee. The company has used me. How dispute comes. When I say this thing, it's a dispute, right? Dispute means not right and wrong, but it's a dispute. How and all industrial rest is created in India because of our own. I am making 80%, we are accountable for industrial unrest. Our incareful approach, insensitive approach, egoistic approach, too casual approach, not an alert approach by us in understanding, implementing, preventing, with all those things, you get into the trouble. Now, this guy is not bothered about if 2,000 rupees different in salary. The contract employee or the union is waiting to bounce on you to negotiate. No, sir, he was not a contract employee, he was a permanent employee. So you make him permanency. That will become a major issue. Okay. Now on that he goes to court. The so-called permanent employee, the contract employee under the Industrial Dispute Act goes to the labor law, labor inspector. What will be the outcome? Tell me now. Another question I'm putting it. But not handling the union, not handling the law properly, how we are creating the industrial unrest seed, not the employee. It normally understood at the end of the session, I want you to understand that 70% the onus of responsibility in preventing and avoiding industrial dispute and issues are in our hand. If the 25% whatever comes also, if you are able to handle it, 75% of the 25% also can be handled. Thereby the amount of unrest, the mandates, loss could be handled very well, provided your leadership is very clean, you are transparent, you are human, you are firm, you are strong, you are able to implement, you respect the law, you respect the right, you respect your own powers, you do all those things, you can be done. Okay, now this guy goes to the court. Sir, they have not only paid me salary less, he will not even say that I am a contract employee. Sir, I was an employee, they did unfair labor practices. They have not kept me in the permanent register. They have also not paid me minimum salary. And now they are trying to terminate me. The situation arises. Now, what will be how will you handle it? Where are you?
First thing, the court will reprimand for not following the practices. The ruling could be penalties.
Yeah.
B could be compensation
Yeah.
for not following. C could be permanency in the job. Because
that is more dangerous, right? That's what he
Yes.
wanted. The first two things, it's easy for you.
So any either way, why? Because these checks and balances were not there during the engagement with the contractors. So the employer can always prove, but then again, it's up to the courts to decide which way it goes. The influence again comes into picture, depending the nature of the grievances.
Correct. Totally agree. So now I just only one more question I'll ask, then I will conclude a theory. You already concluded a theory out of this practicality. Like I said, in the rural area, somewhere in Tumkur, some further beyond Tumkur, you have a factory. The ESI says that ESI Act is applicable. The union says that don't implement ESI Act. Why? We don't want, sir, we are the employee. We will give you in writing. Don't implement the ESI Act, don't deduct and don't give it. Well, what will you do?
First of all, whatever law says, even if it is not implemented, company has to follow the law. Even the union says not required, the legal the writing sanctity or whatever agreed between the organization and the employees, in writing there is no sanctity. Why? Because this has already been guarded, the impunity has already been provided by the law of the land.
Excellent. So now all the four examples, what did we handle? That number one, we should be aware of the law, spirit of the law, implement it fully. Number two, we should handle the union effectively by not yielding to them in a wrong way, either for undue pressure on undue dues which is not fair to them, or even by ignorance of law, like not implementing it. You handle the union effectively, you be careful in doing what you have to do in complying the law, you can avoid a lot of extent. Okay, now this is true issue. Then there are some issues, like for example, there will always be demand for bonus, wage and things like that. That goes through the due process of economic condition. The third could be organizational cause. I said effective handling is communication. Sometimes you are doing a right thing, but you are not able to communicate effectively to the guys. It looks like unfair labor practices. So if you communicate effectively, transparently to the employee, then that could also be avoided. The third thing, what I said, psychological causes. Psychological causes is that people will always go about psychological causes getting into these resistance to change. Like they will say, they will unnecessarily, they will get into rumor. Automation is coming. So many people getting retrenched. So many people are going to be transferred. So many people will be, whatever this. So how you are communicating? Are you able to catch the bull by horn? Are you telling them in advance? 3 issues. All the 3-4 issues could be handled very well by you. But the fourth one is political issue, which is, it's a real damaging one. But for that, the outside guy is always trying to come and dominate your union, because your union still has got some concern for your own factory. But the outside guy is not a concern for your factory. He is always interested in creating an issue out of issue. That is where his bread and butter comes. His profession is that only. Now, how will you handle that part of it? You want to prevent. You cannot say, I will not have a union. Okay. No, but the external union is likely to come and create problem. How will you handle this political? Once it's become too much political, it's already beyond your control. Now, how can you handle this part of it? I can tell you, like I was in your first section, one of your friends told me, Titan watches, what they did is, you can have a union. Number one, the union management really helps the union. They say that union is part of our management, will appreciate. Only one condition, all the office staff members of the union, whether it's secretary, president, treasurer, or any member, has to be only the working employee of this plant, this company, not anybody outsider. Are you getting my point? What they said, yes, trade union is your right, your fundamental right. You are allowed to do trade union kind of thing, which we will definitely appreciate. But one condition is that all these union members, staff members, office bearers, they call it office bearers, whether secretary or a member or a president, everybody have to that. By doing that, this 60 to 70% of it becomes too much political through external can be avoided. Though there's no 100% guarantee to that. So if we, by doing all those things in general, these are the cause and these are the action. If you are aware of the causes, these are the reason after the strikes takes place, people normally say, oh, strike is taking place, I'm going to deal with them ruthlessly, toughly. I'll see to that. I'll lock out. I'll go to suspend people. Is it the way of handling it? Or what we are discussing is the way of handling it? After the strike is over, somebody will come and say, no, we will not close, we'll close down. Let them do with all those mics, whatever they do, it will suspend people, will dismiss people. You are aggravating more. But as a diagnostically, professionally, if you prevent what we have been discussing last 1 hour, you can avoid IR situations, IR dispute, and you can have a peaceful industrial relation to get a better output. Do you agree to this kind of framework or no? We talked about a preventive framework. We talked about compliance due diligence of law framework. We can write a paper on that after discussing with you guys. You can talk about effective handling of union, not saying yes where we have to say no. By doing this kind of frameworks, we will be able to handle it, not that post-mortem, when we made a mess of it and they are on strike and you are going to dismiss people, suspend people, then it only aggravates many things. Correct? So far, are we talking in the right framework? Is it clear to all of us? Is it making sensible?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now some theoretical frameworks. They say when we are talking practically, also to understand some theory of it. The first part of it said that the IR expert, they say there's one approach is called unitary approach. Unitary approach means, say my factory, there's a shift engineer, there are 30, 40 people are working under him, fitter, turner, and all those people. There could always be some minor differences. That guy say that you misuse the word with me, or you not paid me overtime. I worked for 3 hours. You entered in the register 2 hours. There could be always some temporary, though they are very good people. They are working together, they're having tea together, they enjoy, they are living in maybe the same colony. But sometimes this kind of temporary aberrations, knowingly, unknowingly mistakes take place. He says 3 hours I worked, but you entered only 2 hours in the overtime register, something like that. So what it says, there could be temporary, it's inevitable. So you just take it a mutual, respectful manner at that level, at the first level. Thereby you can avoid industrial dispute. That employee-employee relationship can be taken care of. So don't allow that to escalate to industrial kind of relationship. If you have a good unitary approach in ER issues, the shift engineer handles properly, or this guy goes to the HR guy, HR guys handles properly. So the employee relationship is controlled and taken care of at that stage itself. It doesn't get escalated to the level of IR relationship. Okay, one. The second thing is pluralistic. The same thing, more employees comes. It's again inevitable. Lot many perspectives will come up. Lot many issues will come up. So then through collective bargaining, then also many people get involved, many issues comes up. There, let us respect collective bargaining, not involving third kind of people. Try to solve that issue in a respectful, transparent, proactive manner, not react. That's the problem. The third aspect is the one which we cannot handle is Marxist approach. Here it is not ER, here it is not IR. Here it comes to the other issue of capitalist versus socialistic. The people will say, no, we don't mind. We want you to pay more because we are exploiting all the time. And our needs are more, you are making more money. We are not aware of your laws and rules. We don't respect your complaints of law, labor laws. We want more. So that's the third approach. The third approach, we have to have a different ruthless kind of dealing with it. Once you yield to that, then you are always yield to that. 1 and 2 has to be a participating kind of approach, mutually respect kind of approach, understanding, not taking it in a reactive manner, more of a proactive, more of an understanding level, you will be able to handle. So by doing all those things, whatever we discussed so far, we will be able to control IR situation. We will be able to direct, lead, monitor, and control the way you want to control it. Is it possible? Yes or no? Whatever we discussed last 1 hour, will you be able to be the leader in charting out, yes, I want my IR to be like this. I'm going to take all this precaution. I want to do all this do's. I want to do all this do nots. By doing that, I will be able to create a IR culture. I'll be creator this one. Like how many people heard about Hero industry? Hero cycle, when they come out, Munjal sir was there. Many years they have not deliberately, they have not created the necessity to have a union. I mean, if you go forcefully to not to have a union, it will have a different. Anyhow, before I come to that example, now, do you believe that with this kind of framework, this kind of approach, this kind of strategy, you will be able to lead this IR situation in a preventive manner, not getting into post-mortem exercise? Can you do it or not? Is it possible?
Yes,
Come on,
Professor, unless the third one, the Marxist one.
Unless the Marxist one, you cannot do it. I mean, that is requires, I don't know really what kind of situation you have to handle it. That's different. In both situations, by doing this thing, 70 to 80% maintenance loss can be controlled, right? To a large extent. It is in our hand to control all this kind of thing. Right. So that means who is accountable? This industrial undertaking to a large extent, employer, employee. And the courts and all, in any case, they are only watching people. They will only try to, see that trying to diffuse or wherever peace and all those things. Who are the main partners? Employer 3, employee 3. Right. Now, who could be a leader in solving this problem to a large extent?
It's again in the interest of the employer.
Employer is the person who can take it. Now I can give you example. Like Hero Industries, when Munjal sir was there, Hero Cycle, they worked in such a level that the employee union could, the labor could feel there's no need for a union. What I want, I get it. Most of the time, the employees and all, they may be member of different unions. They are not with any union. The union people think that the employees are under them. It is the employee who divide and rule the union, based on my own experience. So when I say, I don't mean that you yield to all the employees, but I have been the one who says, don't create a wrong precedence. Don't give even 1 rupee by mistake more than what his share is. Minimum salary is X, bonus is X, allowance is X, rules and leaves are X. Don't give more. But don't cheat him by not giving, suppose he is a fitter, you are paying oilman salary. Don't do this kind of things, man. And your bonus is already come to the level of 20%. Don't try to pay him 11%, 12%. They will come to know. I mean, you cannot manipulate your accounts book. Be fair enough. I mean, you can try and prove that accounts book saying that no, bonus is not payable 12% as per the account book. Don't do that. Or his salary is as per the fitter. He is already working as a fitter for 3 years, and you are paying him an unskilled kind of salary. Don't do that kind of thing. Or the compulsory leave benefit available is 15 days. You are trying to give him 12 days leave. Don't do all this kind of petty things. Okay. But at the same time, if he wants 3 months leave, don't give him 3 months leave. More than that, he goes without leave, without salary, or you sack him for absenting from the kind of job. So be fair to that guy, comply with that kind of things. So, and then then whatever is grievance, if at all any grievance comes, which is done by mistake, like I said, he worked for 3 hours, you noted it 2 hours. Or he's supposed to get 2 uniforms, only 1 uniform has been given, 1 has not been given. Or the uniform was given was a damaged one. Immediately correct it. When such issue comes, see, many issues comes only that petty small level. Major level comes wage board. Major level comes bonus. These are, you are dealing at a different level. So if you do that kind of thing, like Hero people, they could, now of course they also have that. How many of you heard about Tatas? Tatas initially had the best of the different unions dominating. Even Nehruji and everybody was part of union on part of time. Today, even today take steel, Tata Samsetpur. Maybe 20, 30 unions they have, but go smoothly because the management is not allowing the union to divide us, not allowing the union to make us to make a mistake and then find the solution into that one. Tatas is a good example. Even Titan, I understood in the morning, they are doing very well. So many industry, if you are there, if you comply with the law, if you are stringent with the law, you have a humanitarian one, you are not against any union people, but you don't allow the union to take. So there are multiplicity union. One more reason I gone through it. When I was a CEO at one of the industry in Punjab, I had 3 unions, UP Union, Punjab Union and Bihar Union. Now all the 3 guys, they would like to go and show to the outside employee, there are 1,000 employees, 3 union, and the employee could be union in all the 2, 3. You know, you will not say that he is only 1 union people. So each union has to go and tell this could be another reason for industrial interest, how you can multiplicity of union, where we talked about the second seat, wherever the causes could be multiplicity of union, how you handle it. So each union, they want to show to the employee, I have taken better benefit for you from that company. So when I happened to be the CEO of Punjab unit, there are 3 unions. So I took charge. All the 3 unions, they wanted to take an appointment from me. They wanted to meet me so that they could go and tell outside people that, you know, I met the CEO, I'm very close to the CEO, I'll get you this benefit, that benefit, all those things. It's a cursory, I think, for them. Whenever new CEO or new resident director comes in, they'll seek an appointment that this guy will give an appointment, he'll meet them, they'll talk all goody, they'll get into all sorts of trouble. You know, 1 month, I'm not given appointment to any of these guys. They tried the level best as per their cursory requirement. Sir, we wanted to meet. Then they also got into little reaction. What this guy thinks that he's not meeting, he's not giving importance to the union. Now, how I should have handled that time? Tell me. How I handled it, I'll tell you. How I should have handled according to you, tell me. The practice there is all the union will try to see the CEO, meet individually, try to prove to the union people, I'm very close to that union guy, my employer. I refuse to see any one of them for a month. So a lot of disruption taking place with each guy. He is not recognizing the union. He is going beyond the union, what he thinks. That kind of situation has come. How I should have handled that situation, tell me. And why I handled the way I handled by delaying and not meeting them. Come on, guys. Have you got my question clear? Have you got my question clear?
Not really, sir. Sorry.
Huh? Sorry?
Sorry, if you can repeat your question.
I'll repeat it. That's a unit. There is a company. 1,000 employees are there. 3 different unions. UP Union, because the company has got labor from all the states. UP Union, Bihar Union, Punjab Communist Union. Okay. Now all the 3 unions competing with each other to show to the 1,000 employees, I am a better leader for you. I can get you better benefit for you. Okay. Thereby they were creating a mess for here the laborers, they were the more smart people. They will be member of all the 3, not single union. They will try to say, oh, you get me the best, you get me the best kind of thing. So the union people also to prove to the employee, the labor, that I'm doing the best of it. So in between, we as an employer will come for a task. Okay, this is the background. Is it clear? The background is clear?
Right, sir.
Background. Now the practice is, whenever a new CEO or resident direct comes, all the union, these 3 guys will seek an appointment to see you as a cursory so that they can start negotiating with you their issues. In my time, I have not given appointment to those guys for a month, any one of this kind. So subsequently, they were little troubled with them that why is the CEO is not giving time. Now, why did I delay in giving the appointment? What could be the reason? How I should handle that situation to my betterment? Tell me. Is that situation background is clear?
Right.
Okay, now tell me. Now tell me.
I will try. I will try.
Please try. Please try.
If I have to relate to the current, the farmer ongoing protest, how government of India delayed. They
Yeah.
went on delaying till the such time that they feel unrest, and at a point in time now, hardly we can count it. So here as well, what is the purpose of giving them importance? So delay is one of it. Let's delay it. Let there be unrest created in the factory. If the workers are well aware, if the management is wary of the situation and at the same time well aware of the workers that they are, and eventually if any unrest happen, more the company, it's the workers who will be affected, because that's their sole bread and butter. So company definitely will be affected, but in the long run, company can recover, but the loss, the workers will go. So delay is one factor to see how many people who are there, the problem creators. Thereby management can get a chance to view it and isolate those people, and can later on can come to the table of discussion and understand the situation and handle it.
Good strategy. You are saying that delay, understand, then work out a strategy. That's one reason. That's what you are trying to say, no? Based on the facts you given, you are trying to say that delay to understand, see the reaction, proaction, various things. Then accordingly, you try to work out a strategy. You measure the depth of the water. What you are trying to say is you measure the depth of the water. Then accordingly, work out a strategy how to handle it. This is the principle you said. Agreed. Anybody else would like to add any other principle?
So
What is it?
prolonged,
Yeah. Come. Let's come. I'll tell you how I handle it, why I handle it the way I handle it.
so
I'll tell you
delay
that.
is good. Delay is good to an extent, but then too much of a
Correct.
delay also ignites
Correct.
other kind of reactions. So a
Agreed.
measured delay is good.
Correct. I totally agree with you. The second point, you cannot delay and indifferent, then they will interpret it a different way. You know that you have to delay it only to some extent. Otherwise, they'll different. Oh, this guy doesn't bother us. He thinks that he's too big a bureaucratic. We will teach him a lesson. You know, it will take to that kind of thing. Or even workers will feel, okay, the management is not bothered about us. Second perspective is also correct. We balance it between delay and how much to delay. Two, okay. 2 point is very well. Third, again, I'm going to give you a legal answer. Why the way I did it? You guys are taking it a managerial answer. Managerial answer is good. But what is the legal answer? Come on, guys.
Legally, we are bound to meet them, Professor.
Yeah, we are bound to meet, right? We are bound to meet. Okay. Now, what did I do? Anybody would like to add? I'll tell you. What I said. Then I called my HR guy, told all the 3 union people, I go and tell them, I am willing to meet them any day from tomorrow. But one condition, I will meet all the 3 union representatives together, not separately. And I can give one relaxation. Each union want to pick up 4 people or 50 people, they can pick up. I don't have any objection. One condition is that all 3 union representatives I will see together tomorrow onwards. If you are picking up 4 from each one 4, 12 people come together. I'll meet them in my conference room. If they are picking up 10 people, I'll meet them in my garden. But I will meet them all 3 together. 3. And all 3, when they come to meet me, they will bring and hand over to me in a written piece of paper all the common grievance. They need not discuss. They discuss, or they don't want to discuss with each other. They no need to. Before the start of the meeting, I must have the piece of paper from each one. Sir, I want bonus this much. I want cycle allowance this much, or I want 3 dresses. I want color of change of the dress, or I want a shoe, or I want a walking shoe. Whatever you wanted. All 3 guys have to give in writing to me. Then the discussion will start place. Okay? This is a condition. Now, can they react to this one? They cannot. Because I'm not saying I will not meet. I don't want you to guys divide and rule the workers and divide and rule this one. You give whatever this thing. So what happened is there were some hesitation. Finally, they yielded. They come down. They come to me. First half an hour, 1 hour, we did all our, entertaining them, whatever customization, giving them tea, coffee, joking, and all those kind of things. Then I opened that 3 sheets in front of all 3. The HR guy is sitting, opened up. we found out all the 3 sheets, 70 issues are same, 70 to 80%. We decided all the 70 common issues, all the 25 different issues. We all 4 of us decided not to touch that issue for another 6 months or one till that meeting. All the 75 issues, common issues, we commonly closed it. Yeah, this much I'll pay, this much I will pay. I didn't allow them to get out of the room. Got it typed and signed by everybody, all 3 people. Before they could go out and miscommunicate to the labor, I already made them to sit, 70% of all 3 people. So no union could say that I lost it or I gained it more. And they cannot go and tell. So this culture, the single culture has created that multiplicity union trying to show to the employee that I am getting better. Or employee on the other hand, dividing and ruling the union, I will join with you as long as you get me better. Because of both of their strategy, I was getting into soup as an employer, has been killed at one go. And the culture has been set in that anybody, anytime, any issue, all 3, you come with a different thing, but come together so that in the meeting, you cannot go and say that I discussed this thing, I got it fine. So you will not believe, my 3 years, I got a very peaceful go as a CEO of that very, very complicated industry of 3 unions, especially the Punjab Communist Union was very much dominant in that place. Now, your observations. Have I handled it legally? Have I handled it with an objective in mind? Has that objective been met? Now I want your reflections and points on that. Have you understood the story?
Yeah, I think there is something to learn, and the way it has been dealt with firmly, I think that's something to learn and implement.
Firmly, plus, legally safeguarding. Like you said that I cannot, say that I will not meet you guys for a long time. Initially, I delayed it because then they may not have come together. If I met one by one, my strategy itself could have gone. And then when I called, I said, anywhere you meet, you are most welcome. You are my important pillar. I said, you meet in my conference room, I ate in my garden. We used to have a big houses in the factories, a big lawn. I said, come, we'll have in the lawn nice coffee, tea, ice cream. So, but legal. So I killed one go. Union cannot go mislead employee. Employee cannot divide and rule union. And industrial peace, I got it. So this is again how you handle without yielding. In all the process, since you are fair, did we do anything unfair in that? If you do unfair, another angle I'll tell you. As a CEO in this example, I was humanitarian. I was not unfair. I was not trying to cheat. I was trying to cheat means that bonus payable is 18%. I was trying to tell them, that according to our law, books and all, I try to show them they are uneducated people, only 14% payable. Then it's a cheating, which I will never do. If you do that, you will get into trouble, I'll tell you. That's another reason. Most of the management, they think that they can hide and do. Fact is fact, truth is truth. Be truthful to truth. If you're doing unfair, if you are not concealing the fact, you are doing that kind of thing, you can handle it. I can tell you one more example, very interesting example, where it's the other way around. This is another area, another place called UP. You see that there used to have a sugar mill people, and 1 month I could not pay the salary by 10th of the month. Normally, as per the law, the salary should have been paid by 7th. If you don't pay beyond 7, it's a legal offense. So for the union people, it's a very good chance, right? Legally, you are not paid that. They went on strike. Immediately, that 9th or 10th, by lunchtime, they left the factory. Inside the factory alone, they sat saying that our money to be paid, you are not paid the money, we are going on strike. Now, how will you handle this one? Have you got the question? I'll tell you how I handle also, I'll tell you. You were not paid the salary by 10th. You should have paid by 7th. The union got a good choice to create unrest. They made all the people to sit inside the plant only, saying that we will go slow, we will not work till you pay the salary. How will you handle it? How do you, as an IR expert, how will you handle this issue? Come on, guys. After this, I'll give you a break. Answer this one, I'll give you a break, 10 minutes. How will you handle it? Is it a legal offense or no? As a CEO, am I making a legal mistake? Yes or no?
No, it is not a mistake. It is, I would not see it as a mistake. Why? Because there could be series of occurrence or event, say every time if a company is paying salary, if one time it has not been paid, there should be a serious issues with it. So I will not see it as a legal offense. But yes, the communication should have been gone. Look, 7th, we are not able to pay. It can be extended by
Correct.
3 days
Correct.
because of the challenges we are facing. So
Correct.
that is one way to
Correct.
look at it.
Correct. Correct. Very good. He said very well. Anybody like to add? Then I'll conclude. Then I'll give you a break. See, fact is, legally it's an offense. Like I said, law is 2 + 2 is 4. You were not paid 4/7. It would be a justified reason for not paying it. Okay. What is that? I'm trying to put in a. There is a just. It's not that deliberately, purposely, willful, wrong intention. I have not paid it. I can say justified reason. I could not pay it. There's difference between justified reason and legally it is not, or willfully, wrongly, deliberately not paid. That there are 3 managerial approaches. But legally, under 2 + 2, it's a mistake, not paid in time. So you are eligible for paying compensation. The labor inspector can make you to pay compensation and things like that. Now, how will you handle it? Now I went and again talked to those guys. Yes, I openly said, legally 7th I should have paid. You can go to the court. They can ask me to pay 3 times, 4 times penalty on that issue. The fact is, I have money right now to pay for it. I'm not paying it because I needed this money to pay for the buying of boiler tubes. If advance is not paid in time, your starting of the factory will get delayed. So you will get into serious offenses, economical issues that time. All of us will be in a soup. If you permit, I want to use your money to pay for the boiler tube and I'll pay your salary in 2 days' time. Though legally what I'm asking is wrong. I mean, but this is the reason. If you think that I can use it, give me. Otherwise, come in 1 hour, I'll make the counter to open, they'll start paying it. So I left, I said, I'm with this, I'm going 1 hour back, 2 hours, I'll come back, tell me. So the 2 hours, they must have had different kinds of arguments, discussion, different groups. I went back 2 hours afterward. They come to conclusion. Yes, sir, I agree with you. We want a commitment from you. In 3 days, we'll make a payment. They said, yes, I'll make payment. So right now, sir, some people need some advances and all. You make a payment. I said, I'll pay. Sir, some people even need full. I'll make a payment. So now we amicably settle this issue, saying that, yes, there was a legal mistake. I was justified, but the justified, they could understand. Suppose the other way around, that I had money, or I didn't even bother to go and address themselves. I didn't even communicate to them. It could have created industrial relation. So what is the learning from this one? Catch the problem. Admit it. Don't try to be smart. You have money you don't want to pay. Be forthright in admitting, telling them legally I'm wrong. Managerially, this is the issue. Involve them in the decision making. And thereby you grow. So if you do this 10 kind of examples as a CEO, they'll start believing. But if you've done 1 or 2 mistakes, what I said, they would not. So to what extent as a leader, as an HR guy, created a respect for you from the employee will help you in establishing the IR of your company or your management also for that matter. If they are suspecting you, oh, these guys will always cheat us. They always trying to do that. Then you will not be able to handle the situation. If they know that there could be a lot of reason, these guys will not do with any back intention. They are straightforward, forthright. This thing, then your ability to handle IR becomes very effective. Is that clear? So most of the industry, they are trying to hide. They are trying to sometimes cheat for a small issues. That kind of things, the long way, they will not be able to handle it. Okay, guys. Now I think 3:05. You take 10 minutes break. We'll come back on 3:15. Is that right? Okay.
All right, sir.
Okay, sir.
All right.
Okay.
Yes, Professor.